Okay, so we all know generative AI is, well, it's a huge deal, right? It's changing pretty much everything. But there's something kind of weird, something a little troubling happening behind the curtain, and it has massive implications for all of us.
I mean, really think about that for a second. You need a critical piece of information, so you turn to the smartest, most articulate source available, and it gives you an answer that sounds absolutely perfect, but it's completely, totally wrong. That, in a nutshell, is the bizarre problem we're diving into today.
And look, this isn't some hypothetical. This is a real-world example of what happens when an AI just makes stuff up. It said, with total confidence, that a city's economy was built on pineapple farming, a fact it literally invented from thin air. It's not just wrong, it's so creative and convincing in its falsehood. So how on earth does this even happen?
To really get what's going on, we've got to pop the hood and take a look at how these large language models actually work. Because it's less about thinking and a whole lot more about predicting.
So first things first, let's get on the same page with the key term here. An AI hallucination is pretty much what it sounds like. The model spits out information that's false or makes no sense or is just totally disconnected from reality, but it serves it up to you like it's a verified fact.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. This process here reveals something absolutely critical. The AI isn't thinking like we do. It takes your prompt, scans the mountains of data it was trained on, and just predicts the single most likely next word, or what they call a token. It commits to that word, and then it does it again and again and again. The result? A sentence that sounds statistically probable, but has no actual connection to what's true.
So this leads us right to the main culprits. Sometimes the AI was trained on bad or incomplete data. Other times it just flat out misunderstands your question. But really, the deep-seated problem is that word-by-word prediction process. Without a built-in fact-checker, the AI's prime directive is to be a convincing writer, not a truthful librarian.
Okay, but this is where it gets really wild. Some new research suggests that even when an AI is giving you a completely wrong answer, somewhere in its internal, hidden state, you could almost think of it as the model's subconscious, it might actually know the information is false. The problem is, that little flicker of truth just doesn't make it into the final confident answer it gives you.
So knowing there's a problem is one thing. Actually fixing it, that's the billion-dollar question. And right now, there's a massive race underway to try and teach these AIs to stick to the facts. And you better believe developers are throwing everything they can at this. We're talking systematic double-check protocols, fine-tuning the models to get better at just saying, I don't know, and a really clever strategy called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG for short. And this right here shows you why RAG is such a potential game changer. A standard model just guesses the next word based on its training, but a RAG system does something different. First, it goes and retrieves information from a trusted external source, like a company's private files or a verified database. Then, it uses that verified info to build its answer. It's the difference between guessing and actually knowing.
But here's the thing. This isn't just a quirky technical glitch about pineapples. When you take these flawed models and deploy them on a global scale, all those individual little errors can multiply into massive society-level risks.
This is where the sheer scale of it all changes the entire conversation. We're not talking about a weird bug anymore. We're talking about the risk of building our entire future information system on a foundation that might be fundamentally unstable.
The sources we're looking at really zero in on four huge areas of concern. You've got the concentration of power in just a few companies, massive disruptions to jobs, a surprisingly big environmental footprint, and a whole mess of questions around copyright and data. Let's dig into a couple of those.
So first up, market concentration. It costs an absolute fortune to build and train these huge models. We're talking billions of dollars. That means only a handful of giant tech companies can even afford to be in the game, which gives them a staggering amount of influence over our future. And that, of course, ties directly into how jobs will be disrupted because they're the ones setting the terms.
And then there's the environmental cost, something we don't always think about. The data centers that power these things consume breathtaking amounts of energy and water. This also connects to that fourth risk, copyright. To get the vast amounts of data needed for training, it's often scraped from the internet, which raises some huge legal and ethical battles over who owns that information. All of this leads us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. Is this whole hallucination thing just a temporary bug we'll eventually figure out how to squash? Or is it something deeper, a permanent feature of the technology itself?
And this quote really hits the nail on the head. This is the debate raging in the heart of the AI world right now. Some of the smartest people out there think it's just an engineering problem we can solve. But others are worried it's a core, unavoidable feature of a system that's built to just predict the next word, not to actually understand truth.
Just let that idea sink in for a second. An innate limitation. What if this isn't a flaw we can patch? What if the very DNA of how these AIs are built means they will always have the ability to confidently lie to us?
So I guess that's the question I want to leave you with. As we race to integrate this powerful technology into every part of our lives, from our hospitals to our courts to our search engines, are we becoming dangerously dependent on a tool whose most fundamental flaw, its disconnect from reality, might be something we can never truly fix?